Whoa! Hello there, Travis. What are we actually seeing starts to get complicated? It was easy. It will start to separate. Are definitely not behind that restricted access grid. They're not. Forget about it.
None of them will be able to be revived.
So please, be reasonable. Returning to the orientation we usually the private traditional. A stabby, but I don't think. And those rectangular outcroppings weren't. Here is my Catwoman glove and glove. I should have a floating, impossible anti-gravity blah blah blah. Now, if we were to take it, snapshots, eventually, how do you transmit a discrete shell?
Well, ARIA, we've been tracking this thing for weeks and we still don't know what it is.
The basilisk has its eyes on you now. What are you going to do? And at some point, the acceleration is going to get so high that you're going to pass 9.8 meters. Look, I know that neither of those examples were fun. A screaming fish on this side would never be fun, leaving me weightless no matter where I am. What the? We generate our truth endogenously or within our own bodies.
I give killer high fives.
Is it? Evident? This theory is only one of a dozen. Okay, good, because it's rock, paper, scissors. Where are you right now?
Bam.
The fingerling. That fingerling. Isn't that wild? Fingerling.
This is good coffee. Oh, I'm sorry, what were we talking about?
It's technically an invasion, but if it comes from us, yeah, you know, if you define invasive species as coming from another ecosystem, and the facility is not exactly an ecosystem, it's more like an Oh, hey, I gotta go. I haven't talked to a couple of nerds in like 2 weeks. I love you, bye. Hello, and welcome to Office Hours, the live component of the facility where good old Professor Kyle opens up his blast doors and allows all of you members of the general public, my security team, my professors, my interns, everybody, to come in, for the next hour or so and talk about any old sciencey thing. Of course, as we'll find out, every week I like to talk about any old sciencey thing. We'll be taking a number of topics. Today we'll be talking about a spider invasion happening right now in the United States. As if the United States needed anything else. We'll also be talking about Carl Sagan today, because it is the date of his birth. And finally, we'll be taking one of your comments, questions, and corrections from the latest episode of the facility. We'll be giving you a special plaque. Isn't that right? Kevin tells me that is right. Giving one of you a special plaque, making you an honorary member of the facility. and what a grand idea that would be. Hello, nerds. I haven't seen you in about 2 weeks. I got back from Chernobyl not long ago, so I've been kind of behind on a number of things. I'm a bit frazzled in my brain. It's not because of the radiation, but it's good to see all of you again. We'll be chatting for the next hour or so. If you really, really, really want me to see what you have to say, you can try Super Chat in YouTube. As you see, people like Kalen, Andy are trying with the Australian $15. I can't promise I will get to every single Super Chat, but I will try my very best. And if I don't see it, still know that you are simping for science and paying for the very complicated process of taking spider webs out of my hair. As always, if you want to continue on this conversation after this is live, after this goes up on the channel, you can go to Patreon at patreon.com/Kyle Hill and join the facility today. See episodes early. We're dropping our first lifestyle merch pretty soon. You'll get discount codes on that kind of stuff. If I can do that, we'll figure it out. And you get private members only live streams with me. Not like that. Carnivore with the 10 Australian dollars. So many Australians in the chat. That's why I like opening the doors of the facility. Again, the blast doors of the facility are meant to keep things out. Not, you know. Anyway, Carnivore with the Australian 10. So many Australians in the chat. Of course, that makes sense, I guess, since we're talking about big spiders. Thoughts on the SpaceX mission making it, on SpaceX making it to Mars? Is it realistic? Sure, why not? I have no reason or personal stake in SpaceX getting to anywhere. It's not like Mandatory Sin with the New Zealand $200 says, hey Kyle, show the love, get some rat away on me. I'm fine, I'm not irradiated. I have my Geiger counter still right here. First episode of Chernobyl for my Chernobyl exclusion, hopefully coming this month. People saying that's a small coffee cup. No, it's not a small coffee cup. I'm huge. See, I'm holding a normal size coffee cup. I'm just enormous. All right. So, as we're going through today, remember, keep the chat going, but we have to get to our first topic, which is, of course, a spider invasion. Spiders. BX Samurai says, are we going to get Kingdom of the Spiders scenario? I don't know, because I don't know what that means. Spiders are amazing. Been around for hundreds of millions of years. They're not insects. They're more like scorpions. They don't have muscles. They move using hydraulic pressure. They breathe through holes in their sides. They eat the same amount of biomass every year that twice all of humanity weighs. So if the spiders ever turned on us, yes, they could technically eat all human life on Earth. They have some of the most sensitive sense organs that humans have ever identified. When you talk about something like spider sense, it's in fact true that they have amazing senses. If this spider here, was so tall, such that one of its peats could reach into outer space, 100 kilometers up, its legs are so sensitive, it would still be able to feel a deflection of 1 meter. And it could reach space. Z with the $500 donation, as you're seeing in the new chat window. Oh, hey, Kyle, am I on time? Interesting. Z. Will you be making a video on that new NASA engine that apparently breaks the laws of physics? Well, if it's new and noteworthy, maybe. But if that's the same engine that we've been hearing about forever, probably not. Thank you, Z. Z is wild. Z is the kind of person who puts on a leather jacket, gets on the custom Ducati, just blasts down the private highway and throws money at people. Z's wild. But back to spiders. So spiders are absolutely incredible, but as many of you in the chat are saying, you're very scared of these spiders. Evolutionarily, that may not be the craziest thing in the world, and a lot of people think that spiders are just plain creepy. I happen to love spiders. I've always loved spiders since I was a kid. They're very cool. But these spiders are currently invading Georgia, the northern part of Georgia, the United States state of Georgia. And these spiders are, let's say, not as easily found cutable. That is to say, they get up to about 3 inches long. Fun fact, if you're a average human male like myself, 1 inch is about the distance between your first and second knuckle on your first finger here. So 3 inches long if you want a quick little. So that's a long boy, as we say. So these are big spiders. These are so-called sorcerer spiders, which is the coolest name for a spider I've ever heard. Or Joro spiders. They are East Asian natively, but now they have found themselves in northern Georgia. And as you can see, they get pretty big. And what is science guitar question, tube, solid state, or modeling amp? I use a tube amp. These spiders have golden webs that are yellowish in color, and giant, messy, deep webs. And their webs kind of get everywhere, and they are huge. So you can imagine waking up in your porch, exiting your Georgian home, and finding first sip of coffee of the day. You take your normal sized cup in your giant sized hands. You walking out groggy eyed. And you are almost ensconced in protein slurry from a spider. You can see how this would have many residents of Georgia worried. Scientists have started cataloging these spiders, and indeed they are now invasive in Georgia. These are the females, A, B, and C, and the males are much smaller. They make giant golden messy webs. And I don't want to freak you out even further. Of course I do. But they get around by flying. They fly. So many spiders, the Joro or sorcerer spider included, get around by ballooning. That is, they release some silk from their abdomen, and that silk is raised up into the air both by drag, aerodynamic drag, but also the electrostatic forces in the air itself. It has been proven by experiment that some spiders that balloon, electro and magnetic fields interacting with the charge of the spider web that's coming out of its butt and hanging in the air lift the animal upwards, the creature upwards. And they use this to fly. And so scientists now think that these Joro spiders hitched a ride on some shipping containers or something like that, and they are now in Georgia in the millions. And they have big, sticky webs, as you can see here. Alto Eager says, all spiders are venomous. All spiders that capture prey in webs in this way are venomous, but not all venom is dangerous to humans. The venom of the Joro spider, for example, is only dangerous to humans if you are allergic to that venom. And venom is a whole different, very complicated thing. But that does get me to my next point. Hitchhiking flying sorcerer spiders, says Cadra Bit. Lovely, indeed. Now, an invasive species is usually a bad thing. An invasive species is a species that comes from a different ecosystem into a brand new ecosystem, and that ecosystem, the new one, did not evolve with the environmental pressure that that invasive species would put on it. And so, in a very short amount of time, that invasive species can outcompete the local species. Joshua Burgess with a 10 says, hey Kyle, love the show. We're stationed in Georgia right now, and we noticed these spiders you're talking about. Had no idea they were invasive. That's why I love the facility and live streaming. Look at that. We're talking about these spiders. Someone comes in. Hey, I'm next to one of these right now. Awesome. Thank you for the 10. They're invasive, but... So, an invasive species comes in and outcompetes the local flora and fauna because, like I said, it hasn't evolved to reach an equilibrium with that species. And so they're bigger, faster, stronger, or they have no natural predators or what have you. And so they can reproduce uncontested. And that's what's happening now. But scientists in Georgia are speculating that this invasive species may not be such a problem as other invasive species like lionfish in the Gulf of Mexico or zebra mussels in the Great Lakes. No, because the Joro spider, even though it doesn't seem to have many natural predators in Georgia, it seems to just eat a bunch of mosquitoes and stink bugs. These stink bugs that are everywhere in Georgia and have no natural predators themselves. And so the Georgian scientists, observing the spread of this spider invasion, say a couple of things. First, if you don't like these spiders, too bad. Kyle Howard with the 5 says, so how soon and how fast should I start running for my life? No, don't worry about it. No, really. If you don't like these spiders, too bad. They are not dangerous to humans. If you run into one of their webs, they will scurry away. They will not come to get you. They do bite, but not hard enough to break the skin, and the venom is not dangerous to humans unless you are specifically allergic to it, which are very unlikely to be allergic to it. They eat mosquitoes. They eat these stink bugs in the area that are a nuisance to crops in Georgia. And you're not going to get ahead of them in terms of reproduction. So these spiders, these Joro spiders, are here to stay in Georgia. And look, I can see how this would be bad. But over time, the local ecosystem will come to some sort of equilibrium with these spiders, as it always does, and that's people included. What I will say, people saying, nope, 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 I take that back, I super take that back, F that, kill it with fire. See, now, I knew I was going to get that response once I showed this. Elizabeth Calvert with the 50 says, my tiny human says, how come if you don't rinse off soap, your skin gets itchy? I don't know. I just came out of the shower, which is why my hair's up. I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head. But do you know what is off the top of my head? It's hair. And I knew I was going to get this response showing you this web. So I make one more point. When you say kill it with fire, I know it's kind of a meme to say that, but a lot of people do try doing that and end up burning their houses down every single year. Don't try to kill it with fire. If you're in this area and you simply must get rid of some of these spiders, a good way to get rid of some of these spiders is simply take like the end of a broomstick, take the end of the broomstick, wrap the webs around with the spiders in it, and step on it. Something like that. But, like I said, we're going to have to come... People in Georgia are going to have to come to some sort of equilibrium with these spiders. Some birds do eat them, yes. Don't burn them. Yeah, use a use a broom, use a vacuum, something like that. Don't burn them. A, because it's kind of sadistic, and B, you're going to burn your house down, probably. One of my mods, Heather, says, then can we light the broom on fire? I cannot condone you setting anything on fire. I will not be held personally responsible. But look, I mean, I think these spiders, not just because we have the exact same camouflage, but I think these spiders are downright gorgeous. If you're in Georgia, keep an eye out for them. And if you search for, let's see, at the Georgia Museum of Natural History, they are currently... Department of Entomology in the University of Georgia, they are taking tips about this spider. If you want to take a photo, tag the location, and send it to them, it will actually help the scientists track when and where these spiders are going. Clark Figueroa says, I hate spiders. They're scary. Okay. Spider invasion. Mr. Galley says, how do they taste? Crunchy. Opinions on bacteria produce spider silk fabrics. Bulletproof vests stronger than Kevlar, says Anthony with the 5. Synthetically produced spider silk, because it's stronger than steel by weight or mass, has a lot of applications, like Kevlar. I have no reason to be against synthetically produced spider silk. You might, however, because it is produced transgenically, which means that if you want to produce it from like a goat or something like that, which we've done before, you have to genetically engineer the goat to produce these kinds of proteins because it's very intricate and costly and inefficient to milk spiders. Kevin tells me it is. We've tried it a couple of times. It's very inefficient. So yeah, give me a synthetic spider silk bulletproof vest. Ben McCroby with the 20 says, "Hey show, love the Kyle." Hey, me too. Well, that's not true. I work for the Nature Conservancy. Ooh, see, I love all you nerds. We come in here every week or every other week or whenever I feel like it. And we get people like Ben in here whose experience is perfectly applicable to what we're talking about. Incredible. Ben says, "I work for the Nature Conservancy doing invasive species prevention and have heard about these spooters as an option for biological controls against a type of invasive moth we have here in New York." See? See how science spreads? See, Ben, there's probably nothing wrong with that, right? You get one invasive species, so you bring in a different invasive species, and that invasive species spreads, and then you have to bring in another invasive species, and then eventually you bring in like something like, like rats or something, and then you have to bring in like large cats, and then you have to bring in like wolves, and there's no way that spirals out of control. Thomas Hadrick with the 20 says 30,000 hairs on a beard. 0.00015 ounces per inch. E equals mc squared means every inch of beard is the equivalent of a 274 kiloton bomb. Proof that men store power in our beards. Yay, Wolfram Alpha. Thank you, Thomas, for the 20 and for doing that math. The only caveat is that if you take the rest mass energy of anything, not just a beard hair, but anything that extends out to whatever you want. There's also more energy in my normal size coffee cup. Now, I want to do, if you'll allow me, I want to try to do something. Well, let's get to it. Carl Sagan would have been 87 years old today. I believe he died in 1996, 1992, 1996, one of those years. And he was, without a doubt, one of the best, if not the best, popular science communicator ever. He had a tremendous, he was a working scientist. He published many papers, but then he became obviously world famous for his communication efforts and what he did. And with his series Cosmos, had an enormous impact on the world and on generations of scientists. I suppose today of an older generation, but had a tremendous effect on people, and it had a 1996, right? And he had an effect on me, of course. When I was growing up, watching the old Cosmos series and taking notes on it, I had a notepad, taking notes on everything he was saying and how he was saying it, and it was a huge influence on me and how I wanted to look at the universe and perhaps science communicate just like him. Today is his birthday and Carl Sagan Day, and I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that and acknowledge him. And I want to ask you first. I don't want this to come off as egotistical, but in honor of Carl Sagan's birthday, I mean, I have part of the pale blue dot speech recently tattooed on my skin. In honor of Carl Sagan's birthday, I would like to read you the pale blue dot speech. Would you want me to do that? I don't want it to come off weird, but I'd like to read it with some musical backing as kind of a appreciation of Carl and everything that he did. Would everyone like to? Sure. Okay. So, I want to read the pale blue dot speech, and just for some context, the pale blue dot image is an image that Voyager 1 took in 1990, and it wasn't going to take this image, but Carl Sagan suggested that the spacecraft turn itself around when it was billions of kilometers away and take an image of Earth to provide some sort of cosmic context to where Earth is and where Voyager was. And when I show you this image, I want you to keep in mind that Earth takes up just 0.1 of 1 pixel. 10% of a single pixel. And Sagan actually suggested that they do this in 1980. It took him 10 years to get them to turn the spacecraft around and take this image. But of course, this image led to arguably the most famous scientific speech of all time. A speech within the first sentences that says, "That's here, that's home, that's us," which I now have on my arm here with the bands of light that you will see in just a moment. So the speech obviously means a lot to me. It's something that is always centered me and gave me a lot of context. So, curse noodle, Earth, not to scale. So if you'll allow me for a moment, I'd like to read it for you in honor of Carl Sagan. So let me make sure the music starts. Okay. So here's the image. Look again at that dot. That's here, that's home, that's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you've ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on a mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam. The Earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors so that, in glory and triumph, they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds. Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. The Earth is the only world known so far to harbor life. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Visit? Yes. Settle? Not yet. Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand. It has been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known. Carl Sagan, 1996. Happy birthday, Carl. I hope that wasn't too much. I hope that was kind of nice. But you know what? I want to hear what you have to say. I messed up one word. I was looking at what you were saying. Then I was trying to read. That felt good, though. Like I said, huge impact on the world. And when people say, you know, when the new Cosmos was done with Neil deGrasse Tyson, people were saying, you know, it didn't quite feel quite the same. And people were asking the question, well, people were asking the question before that show came out, who's going to be the next Carl Sagan? And I, among many people, said, well, it doesn't need to be a Carl Sagan. It can be anybody. It can be someone who's very talented and intelligent and passionate. But when you see Carl and you read him and you watch him, there was something special about him and the way that he spoke in this almost lyrical way of speaking that had its own cadence to it, that brought certain words to the forefront, like billions, other words washed away into the vast cosmic ocean. And the way that he spoke and he thought, not thank. Thank is not the past of think. But there was something special about him, you know? Misting Wolf says, very David Attenborough. David Attenborough, yeah, he's close, right? Kyle reads the chat and recoils in fear, knowing that he will have to answer another question to the best of his ability, or else the chat will recede back into the forest. Yeah, thunkin' thunked. Yeah. Christopher Walken shall be the next one. What? Next impression? Whoa! No. Spooky Nightshade says, holy cats, that was the best Carl Sagan impression ever. Was it? Was it okay? I spent, when people ask me about being a science communicator, my number one piece of advice is usually read great writing, watch great presenters, listen to them, and actually note down what they are doing. Communication is as much of a skill as doing science in the first place. And if you don't take it as seriously as your science, it's just not going to be as good. You can be the smartest person in the world. You could be a Nobel laureate, but you could be boring as hell. Because your communication as a skill is not as developed as your science. So when you're developing communication as a skill, look to other people who you know do it incredibly well. And all that is to say that I listen to Carl Sagan a lot. And so, right? So Neil deGrasse Tyson is pretty forward. So here's the difference. Here's a little class for you, chat. Brian Cox is pretty close. So here's a little class. So notice the difference between these three communication styles. So Bill Nye, the science guy, has a very animated style that's meant to bring attention to things he's showing you, like experiments. So when he's talking about, notice that when we have this balloon here, we're talking about pressure. And pressure is the whole Earth's atmosphere pressing down all at once onto this balloon until we let it all out. Pressure. Oh. It's a very animated, excitable disposition where Sagan, again, if he was going to do the same thing, he'd be like, imagine what this balloon represents. This balloon is a representation of all of the Earth's atmosphere, all of the air on this entire planet pressing down, holding hostage this 14.7 pounds per square inch of pressure in this stretched piece of polymer. It's quite an amazing thing if you think about it. It's much more deliberate and illustrative and lyrical. And then someone who I respect a lot, like Alton Brown from Good Eats on the Food Channel, he would do something more like this, where he has more longer runs of communication held together by crutch words like and and. So, now, a lot of people will tell you that if you want to inflate a balloon a correct way, you have to use some sort of pump. But I don't really think that's the case. If you want to do something right, you got to do it yourself. That's what I always say. So we take this balloon. We are going to take one of these pumps. We're going to throw it right away, because if you're listening to me at all, that means that you know that we blow up our balloons with our mouth. That's the reason we have lungs in the first place, isn't it? So the next thing that it's three different ways of doing something, and they're all I know those are all off the top of my head, so don't judge me on that, but those are all different ways of approaching the exact same topic, and they're all very different. And so as a communicator, you have to choose what works for what topic, in what context, in what amount of complexity, for what audience. And if you keep all of that in mind, you can get someone who's quite a master at it. And a lot of people are saying Zafrank and Brian Cox. Brian Cox is different. Brian Cox is British Carl Sagan-y. Brian's very slow. When you have a balloon here, and kind of like the Beatles kind of voice, right? So when you think of a balloon, it makes you think about the beginning of the universe. It's quieter. And Zafrank is good, but it's not a unique communication style to him. He's basically just doing Morgan Freeman. Here now we have this balloon, and this balloon is what we call pretty pretty. And when two balloons... Oh my God. What are they... Are they actually going to do that? And when these two balloons mate and they make the nasty nasty, a little baby balloon is born. See, that's just him doing Morgan Freeman, right? Anyway, my point being is that A, I'm great at impressions, and B, if you want to be a great communicator like Carl Sagan, you have to practice, and you have to answer all those questions I just asked you. Who's the audience? What's their educational level? What are you trying to get across? What would you want them to take away from what you're about to say? How are you presenting it? Is it being read? Is it being listened to? Are you on TV? Are you on the internet? All of those questions, once you answer them, and if you answer them sufficiently, it will put you into a place of great communication. The baby. Yeah. Little baby balloons. Yeah, so Frank is just white Morgan Freeman, right? Alex Jones would be great. No, I'm not going to do an impression of that terrible human being. The baby. Are you proud of your pale blue dot, says James Nett. I am. But before, talk about science like Ben Shapiro. Isn't it interesting that if you look at the Earth, you can't exactly see, you can't see the curve. When I'm out on a plane, I don't see any curve. To me, the Earth is flat. Let's just suppose for a second that... Oh, man. He sucks, huh? Taking shots today. Who cares? Jason Pavlich said, would science be as interesting if there were no Kyle? I think not. Far too high praise. If I evaporated a la Thanos snap, you know what? Let's not get into it. Peer review, as I'm wanting, so that the rest of the stream, let's just say, so that the rest of the stream isn't you asking me to just do impressions. Let's get to peer review. Peer review. So, on the latest episode of The Facility, we were talking about CMEs, or coronal mass ejections. How a new paper points out that we are more or less completely unprepared, and that a large CME, we're due for one, and we're due for a big one, and we do not have the plans in place to prevent the entire internet from going down. We need a whole stream of impressions. See, I was trying to like make an actual good point and try to like show off a little bit with like the 3 different science communication styles and impressions of what they mean and how they do it, and then you're just like, do Seth Rogen. No. We're totally unprepared for the internet to go down, and I wanted to highlight that problem, not just scare you. I wanted to scare you a little bit, but bring this problem to your attention and to the forefront. And let's see if we can find a comment that makes me go, hey ho wow. And then I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to give you a plaque. Kevin says there's a plaque this time. And then we'll make you an honorary member of the facility. Some guy here says, thanks for what? Oh, that's me. Jay Demigod says, Kyle tells us about a global level catastrophe, but here are also some therapists to help you after this info. Look, I'm trying to help. Renegade says, funnily enough, I was talking about this with my friends a week ago. One of them said it can't go down because without power it'll be too cold. I told her then prepare. Dollar Store Thor all hopped up on Monster Energy drink and tearing through some drywall like an angry Kool-Aid man. Yes, Kyle, that is something we'd be interested in watching. No problem. But the comment that I'd like to highlight is right above my noggin from Jason Ross. And Jason Ross says, fun fact, the events Kyle speculates about in this video actually happened in Quebec, which is in America's hat, Canada, in the late 1980s, and it knocked out the power grid province-wide. The power company there ended up developing countermeasures to temporarily shut down the system in the event of a CME. An event a CME was about to hit or detected any overloading was possible. I'm not sure if there are fixes that have ever been put to the test since then, but in theory, I can read. If the grid's powered down, the CME won't affect it, and once the effects of it have dissipated, the grid could be relaunched and work just fine, maybe with some minor repairs needed. In theory, a similar defense could and should be implemented for all power communications grids if it hasn't been already. Look at you, Jason. Thinking all about that. Twinge, thank you for the $1.99. Whew. the really scary, and I don't think I mentioned this. I don't think I mentioned this in the video, but the thing that's scary about preparing for and repairing after a CME is that because so many of the cables for the internet are under the ocean, or under the sea, as the crabs say, they're incredibly costly and time-consuming to repair. The study, like I pointed out in the video, said that in America alone, 40 million Americans or so could be without power and internet for 2 years. Can you imagine that? It's almost been 2 years of this pandemic. Imagine this entire time without power. It would be absolute chaos, right? Complete chaos. And then Ben Shapiro would be like, why don't they just move to a place with power? But in terms of mitigating the damage from a CME, turning things off is good, because if you don't have concurrent current currently coursing through it, it would go a long way in not frying the repeaters that run along these undersea cables and boost the signal, the internet signal, the repeaters that keep the internet alive and afloat. And if we can keep that alive and afloat, then imagine a world where Meta or Facebook never goes down. Brisseni says books require no power. If all the power went out, Brisseni, reading probably wouldn't be the worst of our... Anyway, Jason, for thinking about this at length, I am now making you an honorary member of the facility, comment of the week, and now one of my Kevins is going to bring you a plaque. Fantastic. Fantastic. What's that? What do you mean? Well, no, that's not a plaque. That's a tiny 3D printed Thor's hammer to hold all my rings that actually comes out of the holder? No, I'm not going to give this to that guy. That guy's awesome. This is awesome. I'm not going to... I'm keeping it. Look, again, it's not a tiny hammer. I'm enormous. There's a difference. This is a normal size coffee cup. This is screen this is screen accurate Mjolnir from the films. I took all the measurements. This is the actual size. And look how big I am. I'm huge. The enormity of me is enormous. Heather says, inside voice, please. What are you talking about? Am I loud? Or are people yelling? Otaku says, hey, Kyle, I still have a Kevin over here. He keeps trying to get into my basement. He keeps trying to get into the basement. Maybe because I'm another Kyle, but he's freaking out. Let him in. If you have a Kevin on site, all he wants to do is just get into an enclosed area where the door is shut and lock. So if a Kevin's trying to get into your basement, just let him in there. He should tucker himself out. Once he's safe and secure. Autodrop 3D says that can the singularity occur in the simulation? Think about this. What if the entire point of the simulation is to see whether or not allowing the singularity to happen is a good idea? Of course, you can make the argument that if we don't reach the singularity, the kind of technological escape velocity at which our technology becomes so intelligent that it vastly outpaces anything that humans can ever do, and it becomes super intelligent, blah, 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 blah. There's an argument to be made that you can't make a simulation such as this one without a singularity, but think about that, bro. What if the whole point of the simulation is to simulate the singularity? Think about that for a second. Niope says, where did you buy that SpaceX hoodie? SpaceX. Hey, Carl, I live in South Africa. It's currently 2 a.m. Just wish to say that here we constantly have load shedding, so a CME wouldn't be that bad. Is that a power grid thing? I think it is. I don't know what that is. T. David with a 10 says, been following your channel for so long now. Glad I can finally catch you live and sim for science. T. David 1000. Whew, 1,000 times better than any other person with your initials. Phew. Maestro Diogenes Billionaire. Oh, says, will a Faraday cage save gadgets from a CME? Yes. If you put a Faraday cage around everything, the induced currents... Wait. Would it? Maybe. I don't know. I actually don't know, now that I'm thinking about it. Maybe. I don't know. That other Ted says, is it still a singularity if you simulate it multiple times? Yes. Michael Skinner says, hey, I remember your stuff that you did before because science. No, you don't. I had it all deleted. Like copies of the Star Wars Christmas special. Look, everything that I did before because science is buried in the desert outside of Las Vegas in an undisclosed location. And if you find it, I'll find you. Aaron White says, internal magnetic field is always 0 in a Faraday cage, baby. Oh, okay. So, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so that'd be fun. Dead Meat says, just got here. What did I miss? Nothing. I haven't been doing mostly impressions this whole time. Aochi says, if a singularity happens, wouldn't we treat emerging AI like our babies? We already do it to inanimate objects and animals. That's not the worry, Aochi. The worry is that if artificial intelligence, so the intelligence in something like your phone's assistant, is narrow intelligence. It does some things well, but it can't apply its intelligence to everything. That's general intelligence. And general intelligence is like what you and I have. The worry is that when something like this achieves general intelligence and then super intelligence, such that it is so much more intelligent than you are, it's not like to us, it's a baby. It's not even like to it, we are babies. It's more like to it, we are worms. Like it's not even worth trying to talk to us. We wouldn't understand what they're talking about. They'd be so much more intelligent. There are many scenarios you can imagine in which we would no longer serve any purpose to them whatsoever. Aside from possibly simulating possible futures and or pasts. I don't think intelligence is the problem, it's empathy, says Michael Skinner. Defective AI with the Canadian $2 says, what is a good starter telescope? I don't know. I've never had a telescope. If anyone is an ardent telescopist in the chat, give Defective AI a link to check out. Me, with a $2, says, then who is the simulator in the simulation? Okay, me. I don't want to freak you out. But the simulator in the simulation is also us. So the simulation argument, as put forth by the philosopher Nick Bostrom, who created this whole argument, is that future humans will decide to simulate past humans. And if they do that, they could simulate it so many times over because of their their speculative computing power, that it's more likely that you and I are simulations than it is that we are future humans. Because if future humans could make 1 trillion simulations of past humans, then it's just very unlikely that you are future humans, right? So again, not to freak you out, but you could be simulating yourself. That sounds like a sentence Joe Rogan would say, I know, but still. We have Mandatory Sin coming in again, this time with the 15. So the AI would act how hyper advanced aliens might act. Not necessarily. The way that an organic alien civilization might interact with us could be very different from what hyper intelligent artificial intelligence might do, right? Because you could there is some situation in that an alien civilization could be advanced enough for interstellar travel but not be super intelligent, right? Where they could make machines that make machines that make machines and do quantum mechanics like it's 1 + 1. Of course, there could be, on the other side of the quantum coin there, which is actually the same side at once, heads and tails are the same, don't worry about it. Of course, aliens that have the technology to visit us could just as easily be or have hyper-intelligent AI, but it doesn't seem like, well, I'm just a dumb guy, but that might not be a prerequisite for interstellar travel. Does that make sense? Kyler Stern with the 5 says, hey Kyle, love the show. Have you seen the magnetic confinement fusion? Yes. What are your thoughts? It's cool. Love the show and thank you for being you. Magnetic confinement fusion is actually happening at a place that I've been to. Here. At the I forgot the name. The National Ignition Facility. You might actually recognize this. Hey, Kyle, that looks like the engine room from that Star Trek movie. That's because it is. Do you know how much money J.J. Abrams has? He went to the largest laser facility on the planet where they're doing experiments to simulate what happens in the frickin' sun. And he said, hey, I know you have like many feet thick of concrete right here, but can we cut all of that out and replace it with this plexiglass sheet so that I can film upwards and look at the engine because look at the system because it looks like a cool space engine? That's how much money he has. Anyway, confinement fusion. Boy says, Kyle, I love your memes. Thanks, I just steal them from Reddit. Feral Beast with a 25 says, we are just in someone's game of Sims mixed with Plague Inc. The problem with the simulation argument is that there's no way to test if we're in it. And if there's no way to test if this hypothesis is true or not, if there's no evidence that could be put against it or for it, which I'd argue there's not, because if everything's perfectly simulated or not, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Oh, one of the tenets of the simulation argument is that reality is simulated to a sufficient degree such that you cannot tell the difference. So, anyway, if there's no evidence that you can put towards this hypothesis that would confirm or deny it, it's not really science, and it's not a scientific hypothesis or theory, and therefore it doesn't really explain anything. It doesn't offer any real utility. If the universe is simulated, then everything is the same. If it's not simulated, then everything else is still the same as it always is right now. It doesn't really, it's something interesting to think about. It's a cool philosophical argument, but it doesn't really give you any new things to think about metaphysically. Anyway, so what did we talk about today? Today, chat, we were talking about spiders, the spider invasion in Georgia. How, even though it's an invasive species, it might actually have some utility, unlike the simulation argument. We also did a little in memoriam for Carl Sagan, one of the best, if not the best science communicator of all time. Then I did a bunch of impressions, and I also read you the pale blue dot speech. I tried to do it with some reverence. If you enjoyed it, let me know. If you missed it, you can go back after this is live and watch it. And we also talked about the entire internet going down, which these days doesn't always sound all that bad. I hope that everyone has had a great week so far. I'm back. Last week, we didn't have an office hours because I had nothing to say. I don't have to make content. But I can tell you that we are making the first Chernobyl videos right now. The first Chernobyl video, the biggest, the longest one, is being worked on right now. So expect a Chernobyl video in the near future. The wormhole contest, where I'm paying you money to come up with a better version of a wormhole demonstration than the pen through paper, has ended. Submissions have closed. So I will pick a winner along with my other physicsy judges, and I think I'm going to make a whole video, maybe, highlighting the winners. So that's coming up. And I believe that we will finish off Dead Space for our Scientist Plays streams. Maybe we'll do that this weekend. We already did 2 Dead Space playthroughs on Halloween Eve and Halloween night. If you want to go to twitch.com/sci-fi, you can check out our playthroughs of that. And we have a new gaming channel where highlights and cutdowns and best of moments of all of that, BioShock, Sekiro, Fallout, Dead Space, Mass Effect, all of that will be going on the new gaming channel. Check that out. Of course, if you want to continue on this conversation after this video is live, go to patreon.com/Kyle Hill and join the facility today. Videos early, behind the scenes, private members only live streams with me. Thank you today to everyone who simped for science, paying for that delicate, expensive process to remove orb weaver spider webs from my hair. Thank you to my security team in the chat for keeping it nice and civil in here. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. If I don't see you this weekend when we're streaming some games, I will see you on the next office hours. Happy birthday, Carl. To all of you, be nice to each other, because at the end of the day, this is all we got.